Yeah.
Does anybody ever look at it?
Oh, yeah, we get anywhere from 30 or 40 people, sometimes up to 100
Really?
views.
And why, what are they looking
I'm
for?
believing that most of them are the ones looking to see if they were on the license approval list.
Oh, okay.
I think that's most of them.
That's most too.
I know that every once in a while, the guys
Is
from
that
the
it?
AG's office look too.
Do we post the stuff onto
Yeah.
the, as an attachment?
Yeah,
Oh,
it's posted on our, this is posted on our website.
okay.
And then.
Oh, so they just want to make sure it's approved.
Yeah, and then the recording of the meeting is on our YouTube, we have a YouTube page.
Yeah.
Okay, we're live now. Okay, yep, you are.
Okay, it's 4 o'clock and I'd like to call the meeting of the Guam Board of Accountancy to order. Present for the meeting are myself, Telling Taitano, our chair, John Anadera, is off island and unable to attend the meeting. Sean, Jenny, Dave, and staff. And, Francis is also excused. The notice of the meetings were posted.
Yep.
As required by law. And there are copies of the notices, in the board packet. And, if there and the agenda, there's no need to change the agenda, we'll just go down as. Okay. Okay, so the next item on the agenda then is the approval of the November 21st. 2024 minutes, and after you've had time to look at it, if I could get a motion to approve.
I move to approve.
Second. Any objections? There being no objections, the minutes are approved. Under old business, we have the update of the endowment fund.
Yep. Okay, you can look in your package, the summary page is as of December 16th or 17th. And, well, I guess they're showing the 13th, but, showing that we had a balance of 5.676 million, ending market value. And that's a little lower than the 5.691 that we had at the end of December or end of November 29th. So we went down about 15,000. So, but as usual, the market still goes up and down. And I know it dropped 1,000 points since yesterday, and the Fed
Reduced
meeting
interest
wasn't
rates.
so hot. But not sure at this point how much effect it has on our investments, but we were showing as of the end of November a 13.4% annual return for the year, which is not bad. That's twice what we planned for in our 6% investment plan, 20-year investment plan. So kind of makes up for the last couple of years, which kind of evened out. And we've shown $50,000 in expenses for the year. And that's typically the investment management expenses. And at this point, we're still holding in the 62,000 realized capital gains. We don't have any realized losses yet, because we haven't been put in a position of needing to liquidate anything on a negative basis. So ongoing, I just expect the fund to pretty much follow the market performance over the next few months. And we'll see what happens. You know, there are a lot of upcoming events that could affect the economy. So
One way or the other.
yeah, but at this point, we're holding steady. The visiting professor program that's supported by the fund is still in good health. The current visiting professor is being converted into an actual full-time University of Guam professor. He's being processed, so as of January 25, he will be a full-time faculty member at University of Guam. So in essence, he's exiting the visiting professor program to become a full-time professor at the university on their staff. So
Are you aware of, UOG's interviewing anyone new to,
we met with the dean a week or so ago, and we have one candidate, possibly for a summer visiting professor. We're looking at someone who might stay the entire summer over I think there's 2 8-week sessions or something like that. So we're looking at having Ruben come. Ruben Davila is from USC. And he's been with USC quite a while. He's a practical professor of practice or something. So we're looking at having him come for the summer and teach a couple of courses.
in person?
Yeah, and in person and teach a couple of courses. Dr. Jones, the dean, has all of his information. It's up to her to deal with him, whatever the arrangements are that they make. So that's the next guy, person we're looking at from a visiting professor standpoint.
Have they thought about, finding some of the professors to teach the master's course from off island?
I think they've looked at it. We did have one, I think there was one semester where they used Billy, from Mississippi.
Yeah.
Billy Moorhead, he taught one of the MAC courses, and we supported that. We paid his stipend for that. So, and I've made it clear to Martha that if she needs any support for a visiting professor for the MAC program, let us know. We're happy to support that also.
And just before, the meeting, we had a photo opportunity with, the foundation.
Right, with the Endowment Foundation, another photo op for our more recent contribution to the last fiscal year.
The summary is showing a deposit of $225,000. That was the amount of the contribution.
That's the contribution for the photo op. That's what they'll put in the check. So they'll Photoshop the check. So.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that was made last September. It was the last fiscal year, so. So that's it at this point. I think the visiting professor for the summer is the only thing they're looking at this point. So.
And the class that just happened went well.
Right. Yeah, the CPE class that Dr. Conrad gave as part of the visiting professor program, we require them to provide at least 1 day of free CPE to the community for each semester. So he did a 4-hour presentation last Friday. I think we had 98 people in attendance, and it went well. I was there for most of it. I think Sean, you were there.
You went to the last one. You were there? You were there?
Yeah. Yeah.
And I think he's gonna do one more
Yeah,
next
he's
semester.
due to do one more 4-hour session.
Yeah. Francis was also there.
Yeah, Francis was there too, yeah, so. Yeah, it went well. We had 98 people in attendance, and I think his presentation style is good. The kids at UOG seem to really appreciate his being there. They're happy with his teaching, so. Overall, I think we made a good investment in having him here for a year, which he personally told me that he was very happy that he took the visiting professor opportunity because he wasn't sure
It was a good
that
fit.
he would be a good fit coming to Guam. But he loves it here and he loves the people, and he's just happy that he took the opportunity, and now he's decided to make his permanent home here.
He says great things about our students.
Yeah, he really enjoys his students. And the teaching experience, he said, is great, and he loves the island and people in the life. So, we just added one more. I told him when we first met that, he had to be careful because Guam would grow on it. And he told me that I called it because it did. So that's a good thing. I mean, it's a good way to bring people in and make sure we don't waste a lot of money moving them here and then having them want to move back. And it worked out well. Yeah. It's one of our successes, more recent successes, yeah.
Any questions about the endowment fund or the program? No? Okay, so under new business applications,
New licensees. We have,
Any Guam folk?
only one is 2 new firm licenses. We have 32 new licensees from everywhere, from Japan, the UAE, Saudi Arabia, Taiwan, India, Texas, you name it, Hawaii. But we have 2 new firm licenses. There's a Manoa CPA firm, that's Carlton Williams from Hawaii. He's had relations with clients in Guam for quite a while. He's had a firm in Hawaii for at least 30 years that I know of. I've known him for about 30 years when I used to go there for CPE.
Do they do audits?
He does, and he submitted his latest peer review. He passed his latest peer review, so. And then we have a new firm in Guam, the CK Tax and Accounting Solutions, DBA CK Tax and Accounting Services, and that's Christina Kim. So she's acquired her initial firm license. So.
Did she used to work for one of the?
I think she worked well.
I think she, over the past few years, yeah. So she's gone out on her own, which is a good thing. So the more firms, the better for Guam. So, anyway, so we have about 11 inactive and the rest are active CPAs, like 21 active licenses, new licensees. So, we don't have any problem with any of these. They're all good.
Can I get a motion for approval?
Motion to approve.
Okay.
Any further discussion? No objections?
Yeah.
And
That's the last thing I have is, the financial summary and then a little bit of general discussion. The financial statement, this one's estimated, because we're totally caught up, from our finances and financial statement and meetings, because previously we had canceled a meeting. We're now ahead of NASBA by a few weeks, so they don't actually come out with the applications that they processed last month until almost the second month. So it won't be another week until I get that information. So I usually estimate the applications processed for the month of November. And in here, there's about I think it's about 20,000 that's estimated for the month of November. And I do that by usually taking a rolling 6-month average of the previous 6 months. And then I compare that to a forecasted linear forecast over the last year and just try to get close. And it usually is within 1,000 or so, plus or minus. So that's how much the estimate is. But overall, we did 89,000 in revenues and 60 in expense, over 29,000 to the good, with excess revenues. And I foresee that continuing at this point. I think we're relatively on budget in terms of our forecast, 700,000 basically. And I know we'll do a little less than that in the expenses. So, we budgeted 196,000 for endowment contribution. So I'm reasonably sure that at this point that we'll be able to at least make another 200,000 contribution to the endowment fund by the end of the year. That's what we're looking for. But otherwise, we're fine, expense wise. Don't have any issues at this point. Unless anybody has any questions. I won't have a draft of the applications process until I come out with the actual. I don't ever graph the estimated, numbers, and it's not very meaningful. But hopefully I'll have it in the next week or so, the info from NASBA for the November applications process. But all I can say at this point is it seems to be holding steady. So we always thought there'd be a decline due to the score holds and the new exam and all, but it doesn't seem to have declined at all. So that's a good thing. Any questions?
You had some general discussion.
Yeah, the last thing I wanted to bring up was that, in the past, we discussed the, exposure gap that, AICPA and NASPA put out about, improving the pipeline, which was with a new pathway, which was the principals pathway, I guess, where, you would, have somebody work in a firm and they could have a bachelor's degree and, 2 years experience, but one of the years experience would be proving that they've mastered competencies, et cetera, and have an evaluator, all that kind of stuff. I just want to say that although we didn't submit a response to the exposure draft, I monitored all of the submissions by all the major jurisdictions in the states. New York, California, Texas, Ohio, and there was also Maine and Rhode Island and Connecticut, and several of the Midwestern states, the Dakotas, Nebraska, and Washington State, Oregon, and not one of them made any overture towards accepting the exposure draft conclusion. They all agreed that it needed to go back to the drawing board because it overly complicated the issue and confused the issue and could potentially affect substantial equivalency and mobility, and just outright was just way too off the mark relative to what we need. So in that sense, I don't think the exposure draft is gonna actually go anywhere at this point without being major revision. There was one jurisdiction that said, well, they agree with it in principle, meaning they agree with, the competency part and things, but how it's gone about and how it's gone about, certifying those competencies, they don't agree with. So a whole other story. By the same token, I did get some information just actually this morning from John Johnson at NASPA, who monitors all the legislation. And at this point, there's 3 states that have put forth legislation that's actually been introduced. And I'm not sure if one of them is actually passed or not, but I can't remember the states, but out of the 3, they all have basically gone back to saying we will accept a bachelor's degree and 2 years of experience, which is the same thing everybody's had for years. It only got changed by saying that masters in 1 year or bachelor's in 2 years, but you have to have 150 hours of education. These 3 have removed the 150 hour requirement and gone to saying a bachelor's degree and 2 years experience.
And that's a bachelor's with a concentration in accounting.
Each one of them has some wording about concentration in accounting and business subjects. And I know that one of the things that California kind of put forward was saying, why don't we get away from the 150, 120 thing? It's all 120 to SID, 150 to license, and just say bachelor's or master's degree. That way we're free from how many hours anybody has, and then look at more specificity in terms of what we require in terms of core competencies, meaning business courses or accounting courses. So, and I'm thinking that, that's probably not a bad way to go, because it frees up some of this, 150, 120 stuff. But in the process, because of the fact that between the 150 and 120, that 30 extra hours, there's no specificity as to what it needs to be at this point. It could be anything, relevant or irrelevant. We might be better off looking at the bachelor's or master's degree, but then providing more specificity of the course content in terms of accounting and business core, so that you could actually require more hours of accounting and business, but not have a finite 150 minimum kind of thing.
So for the state that passed the law, how does that affect the,
Well,
There.
that's kind of yet to be seen, because they made there was one that made some changes in the language by removing the definition of substantial equivalency and changing the way they look at mobility, and I don't know what those details are, so I just got it this morning, but that's just the one thing I think that is gonna be looked at and probably will be discussed vehemently over the next few months, up to the next meeting. The next meeting I'll go to is the executive director meeting in March, for all of the executive directors. In the meantime, we'll have calls for the executive directors in January and February, and I'm sure I'll hear a lot about it then. And I wouldn't be surprised if, NASBA decides to put out a webinar on some of these changes, potentially presuming this legislation actually gets passed, and then they have to deal with the consequences. So we'll see what happens. I just wanted to put that out there so everybody's aware.
At one time, did our statutes require either a master's degree or a bachelor's degree in accounting with public accounting experience? Was that how it
Well,
read at one time?
a long time ago, I
Back
don't
in
know
the-
about the Guam statute
Yeah,
way back when, but
it had some specifics, right?
as of
Some
that's what I
2000,
seem to recall,
Yeah.
but
as of 2003, when Mac was executive director, they passed they enacted the Guam Accountancy Act, which implemented the Uniform Accountancy Act as of 2003.
Mhm.
That required 150 hours and but the way it was enacted, there was no specificity because it just took the UAA and said, here it is. You didn't modify it for any of the specificity.
yeah, I guess I'm thinking of the statute that kind of
Yeah.
predates,
So
the
prior to
UAA.
that, I'm not
Yeah.
sure what it was. But in 2006, we amended the law, the Guam Accountancy Act, such that we always said in the law, a bachelor's degree or equivalent, or master's degree or equivalent.
Mhm.
If you had a bachelor's degree or equivalent, you needed 2 years of experience. If you had a master's degree or equivalent, you needed 1 year of experience. There was no hours designation, but there was a specificity to the content, meaning how these business courses
This is not-
and these accounting courses,
Yeah,
and specified certain amount of hours of each, right? So ultimately, I think in 2006, the law went to saying you needed these business courses, these accounting courses, and you could take electives, but you had to have a minimum of 24 hours of these upper level business, 24 hours of upper level accounting. And about 12 or 16 hours of each were specified and the rest was elective. So you
And
gave,
that would have been even just to be able to sit.
right, yeah, basically just.
That's
said-
why the extra 30 didn't matter.
Right,
Because
right.
in order to
Yeah.
be able to sit, you would have to meet
Yeah.
the specific course descriptions.
Right, but at that time also, we didn't require the 150 hours, so.
That was kind
It
of
wasn't
why,
until 2016 that we enacted the 150-hour requirement. And we were the next to the last jurisdiction to do so.
Yeah.
California was the last. And I figured, well, I'm not doing it until California does it, because they've got, 10 times the number of licenses we have or more. And when we enacted it in 2016, we said, okay, we've enacted the 150-hour requirement. But the UAA provided a 5-year phase-in for that. So it didn't actually take effect until 2021. And that's when we needed to get the masters in place.
the
so
UG.
we could at least qualify our local candidates with 150 hours, master's degree. So,
and at one time, was the experience requirement with a CPA firm?
Used to
long
be, it used to
time
be,
ago,
right?
sorry,
long time.
Yeah,
keep
But,
watering it down.
it was probably in the 90s or 80s when they actually changed it from the CPA, public accounting.
yeah, to working
experience,
under the
to
supervision of a,
being in private or in
Yeah.
government.
But on Guam, we have two licenses, right? One for a test,
Yes,
which you have to have
as of 2016.
audit.
We did that in 2016, so if you want to provide a test services, you have to work under the direct supervision of somebody who's authorized to perform a test work and sign reports for test work. Which typically means public accounting.
Yeah.
standards.
And for those of us who got our license under the old,
Oh, your grandfather.
right,
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
we all had to do our 2 years or one
Yeah.
year, I guess, for you.
Yeah, with the public accounting,
Right,
But now it's not
Yeah.
required, as long as you work under a CPA.
yeah.
yeah,
So when we were just at the annual meeting for NASBA in October, and this was one of the discussions, the whole.
yeah, one of the major discussions relative to pipeline and pathways, et cetera, and I know it's gonna get, well, probably a little more heated along the lines when legislation gets passed, and now people are saying, no, I'm from that state, and can I go over there? And somebody says, well, you didn't get your license the way we said you have to get it, so I'm not sure you can come here. So there's gonna be a lot of that back and forth till they sort it out. But I have to say that most of the jurisdictions, at least in the executive director calls, meaning people who do the work, none of us as executive directors feel that there is any one jurisdiction that has the ability to say, well, if you didn't get it our way, you're not substantially equivalent. Most everybody feels that as long as you come to us with a active license from another jurisdiction, we're gonna accept that license and allow you to practice, whether it be through reciprocity, substantial equivalency, or just mobility. Now, some states have automatic mobility, which means no problem, you can come do whatever you want to here, as long as you're licensed. But when you do, you're agreeing to be disciplined according to our rules, so if you do anything wrong, we're gonna go after you. That's,
They don't, do they have to register?
yeah.
So we wouldn't even necessarily know that they,
Right, and that's typically the issue is, it's like driver's license, you can drive across the states, nobody knows you're in their state until you do
get an
something wrong,
accident.
right? Yeah, so, and that's the way they look at it, there's 5 or 6 jurisdictions that have that's what they call automatic mobility. And other ones are looking at it, we've always had, since 2016, I guess, individual mobility, meaning you can come and do anything an individual CPA can do, for tax work, consulting, whatever. You just cannot do a test work. Our law provides that if you want to do a test work, you have to have a firm permit, which means you have to
A Guam.
register.
A
Yeah,
Guam.
on a Guam firm permit, which means you have to register for your firm permit, which means we know you're here, you're doing the test work. So, and there are several other jurisdictions like us. But there are some that aren't, some have individual and firm mobility, and some have what they call automatic mobility.
Yeah.
But I don't know of any jurisdiction, at least from the executive director level, that feels that we're going to say that if you don't do it our way, we're not going to accept you as substantially equivalent. And say you can't practice here, that kind of thing. None of them have expressed that kind of sentiment, so I don't think that'll ever fly. I did make the point in one of our breakout meetings in the annual meeting we were at. I don't know if I can't remember if it was the executive director, but I made the point that I don't feel like there's any one jurisdiction out of the 55 that can stand up and say, you got to do it our way or else, because we have a better track record of less problems or less disciplinary issues or better CPAs. There's nobody that can say that. And everybody has differing rules today about how you get your license, how many hours of what you have to have. Do you need business law or not? Do you need tax or not? So it's all over the board today, so I don't see how anybody could stand up and say, you either do it our way or you're not qualified to practice in our state. That makes no sense. And all of the executive directors that I've heard from on the call feel the same way. So I don't
So,
think.
so do you think the next version of the UAA will sort of reflect that,
I
as
think
long as
it's-
you're licensed?
I think it's gonna have to account for that one
Yeah.
way or the other.
Yeah,
Because we all basically believe in, we've all practiced mobility for so long now, then how can you?
How do you
practice
unwind
from
that?
it?
Yeah.
yeah.
You can't unwind it, and there's no evidence to point to any one pathway being any better than the other ones. You know, so.
Yeah, and there's so many of us who are grandfathered under
Right.
old rules. So
That,
what is
that,
the,
that too,
I mean,
yeah, and there were still a couple of jurisdictions that said. If you were practiced for 20 years and, you know, had this and then in this high education, then you could still apply and get a license. There were one or two of those still hanging out there, so, although nobody had been using it, but, you know. So who's to say? So I don't think it'll be an issue going forward. I think it's just gonna take a long time to get sorted out. But I do know, well, I don't know, but I feel that from all the comments I've seen, the exposure drafts are gonna go back to the drawing board. They have to. 'Cause
Yeah, it seems
there's no
that,
agreement.
that enhanced year just, is not gonna fly, right? Seems like there was a big disconnect between the task force that sort of
Put it out.
conceived of it, right, and what's coming back from the
Yeah,
jurisdictions, right?
practicality.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's the difference between
the
the
people who are actually
concepts,
gonna have to
Yeah.
execute
the
it.
concepts and execution.
Doesn't even seem to be
Exactly.
close, you know, it's
No,
like,
it's not.
you know, yeah, well,
Huh?
no, we're not gonna go there,
How do you do
yeah,
that?
forget it. Go back to the drawing board.
Yeah, so anyway, I just wanted to get that out there so everybody's aware of it, so. I don't have anything else, so. okay.
Nobody has any expiring,
No, I think you were the only
I
one
was-
that
okay.
got renewed already. I think
Yeah.
you.
So
somewhere
it'll
in
be-
April, so at this point, yeah.
Okay.
We're good.
just wanna make
as
sure.
far as I-
I have to go back and take a look at my appointment, I'm not sure.
You weren't expiring, right?
You-
Cause I was feeling an expired,
Arlene would be telling you
Yeah.
if you were,
okay.
Yeah.
Okay,
yeah, so I'm not worried about it.
if there's nothing else,
No comments, no other questions.
okay.
Okay.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
Motion to adjourn.
Second, okay.
Okay,
Say
thank
no
you,
for
everybody.
comments. Meeting adjourned. Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Merry Christmas.
Happy New Year. Full of good spirits, not you, the celebration.
I don't think they can hear me, Jess.
Okay, Francis.
Francis was on.
Okay,
Bye,
Merry
Francis.
Christmas.
Good. Merry
Oh,
Christmas.
sorry, was she?
Merry Christmas, Francis.
later.
Merry Christmas.
Merry
Okay,
Christmas.
bye.
Yeah.